My guest today, Chris, not only started a glamping business, but he scaled it up to the point where it is 3 safari tents and 3 shipping container homes. He also has gone through easily the biggest fear anyone in the glamping industry has, and that is local authorities knocking on his door, serving him papers, and trying to shut him down. In today's episode, Chris is going to teach us everything we should do and everything we shouldn't do if the feds are trying to shut us down. He's also going to teach us how to run a glamping business in cold weather, how to deal with nasty neighbors smearing your name on social media. I mean, he's really gone through it all, but he's also leveled up and built such a great business that we all can learn from. So for that reason, I'm extremely excited for today's special episode. As always, I just have one special request. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, please do take the time to give us a nice review on those platforms. And if you're listening on YouTube, simply leaving a comment helps us more than you would think. It not only gives me the motivation I need to keep going, but it also helps me persuade these industry-specific experts to come onto the show and give us their knowledge. With that being said, my name is Jay Esperance, and this is the Keep It Tiny podcast. Let's go. So what I'd love to do, though, is start at the beginning. And can you tell me how you got into the idea of starting a glamping business? I know that you're a former educator. So I always love that because people think you have to start from a hospitality background or this or that. And it's kind of like, how does someone go from being a former educator to, starting a glamping business?
Yeah, hospitality, I never really knew I had this passion for outdoor hospitality. I've been an outdoorsman for the better part of my life and really enjoy hunting. And it was in 2019. You mentioned an educator. I have since left teaching and now I'm doing glamping full time. But my wife and I had the summer off and we said, let's remodel our bedroom. And we did that. So and to the studs, I took everything out and replaced everything. Instead of living in our living room for the month and a half, I built a platform in my backyard and erected my wall tent, my hunting tent. So this is a nice Davis tent out of Denver. They're very durable and stuff. And we loved it. We just had a blast. The kids were inside. We were outside. We just had a great time. And at the end of that month and a half, we said, you know what, let's throw it up on Airbnb and see what happens. And we booked out the rest of the summer.
Oh, wow.
And then I made $2,500 off of my hunting gear that was in my garage. And
these were all things you already had.
Yeah, this is all. Yeah, this is $2,500 of free money. So I was like, wow, this is not too bad. So the next summer rolls around, and Wendy and I decided to do a second tent. So we bought a new tent and actually did the same kind of thing on the other side of our property. We have a nice piece of property too, so that was a plus. And I made $18,000 that summer.
Wow.
And we turned out to love it. And we ended up just really enjoying our guests and got to know some really neat people. And people would come to our place too and want their privacy. We always respect that. So we're super hosts, I think. But that now $18,000, that was turning into a side hustle that we wanted to pursue. So the next summer, so this is our third summer. So this is 2019, 2020. That was a COVID year, so we were thinking maybe it was a fad. But then the 2021, we opened up again, and we pulled out all the plugs. We kind of maximized our property and put out had 3 tents and 3 container homes. And,
wow!
And that was So we put 6 units on our property. Jamie, we made $90,000 that summer, and now that was a game changer. However, we started getting visits from what I call yellow jackets. And yellow jackets are people wearing yellow jackets with a badge on, and they show up at your front door unexpected and say, we're from the government and we're here to help. And so that was, now we live out in the country, so I really thought I had more liberties than I did. And they started actually, it wasn't so much the yellow jackets. It was, I had a neighbor who did not want me to do what I was doing. And they were calling every entity under the sun. They were calling the health department, both state and local and county, the building department and the zoning department. That's about it. But they also took it to social media. They went online in the next door and ranting and raving about how awful we were and stuff like that. So they got nasty.
Yeah.
And Well, that kind of almost shut us down. I mean, we contemplated it. We had to fight that kind of smearing, and so we on two fronts. One, the government front, where the Yellow Jackets, with trying to deal with them, but then also with this kind of social smearing that was going on. So now I've lived here for 23 years. Wendy and I are very well known in our neighborhood. Actually, this one neighbor was somewhat of a hermit, and she made enemies with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I went knocking on the doors of my neighbors and really convinced them that this was actually a great thing to have in our neighborhood. And so they started writing letters to the county and all the authorities in my favor,
Mm-hmm.
and it swayed everything to my side, and now we're very active in the Chamber of Commerce. Where we've at the end of the story, we ended up I ended up quitting my job. Wendy is a homeschool mom, so she also in education. She's still homeschooling her kids,
Okay.
but the idea is that we restructured our whole lives around glamping, and now we own and operate Monument Glamping on our property.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a big ribbon cutting ceremony May 1st. Even though it's our fourth season,
Mm-hmm.
we're really established with the zoning, and all our permits are in place, and we're crushing it. I mean, we've gotten. I got a couple of things here. We were published on the Monument Living magazine. That's
Oh,
my
nice.
family with
Oh,
my tent
wow.
in there.
Yeah.
And then there's let's see, a newspaper did a story on us, Glamping in Style, the local newspaper. And we got Box 21 coming. This is a local Box affiliate coming over tomorrow and doing a story on us. So we're making an impression in the community, but all
Mm-hmm.
that is all centered around glamping, and it's and we're having a great time doing it. It's
Mm-hmm.
really fun.
It was year 3 when the Yellow Jackets came near your door?
Yes, yes.
And
So that was so a year ago today.
okay.
What I was up to my eyeballs in all sorts of zoning codes
Zoning, permitting,
and
legal trouble.
yes, that was an eye opener for me. I
Mm-hmm.
really unincorporated El Paso County. Even that name, unincorporated, makes it sound like, hey, leave me alone,
Mm-hmm.
government.
Yeah. Yeah.
We won't say anything if you don't say anything. And so that's the kind of neighborhood I lived in. That was actually one of the pitches that I gave to my neighbors, who I wanted. You can kind of I see that happening in the glamping world, where neighbors stand up
Yeah.
and rise up and say, hey, "Not in my backyard,"
Yep.
type of movements.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of turned that to my advantage, and I said, we like to say tongue in cheek, we don't like people. That's why we live out in the country. But that's not true. We do like people. What we don't like is being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was saying, this one neighbor is trying to tell me what to do,
On your land.
just like she tells everybody what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want that to happen. Now, there were some legitimate concerns that neighbors have, and
Mm-hmm.
I had meetings with them, and people. Give you just a quick example. What my next door neighbor across my street didn't know this. He actually helped me build my driveway so that people can come in and out easily to my property. Well, it turns out that when they pulled out, the lights would shine right into his bedroom window.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's awful. And so in my site development this last year, because we've done a lot of developments this last year. My site development, we're moving our driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of, that's just being a good neighbor. I don't want that to happen. And he's the closest neighbor. He's right across the street, and he wrote a glowing letter to
Mm-hmm.
the county, so that it's actually public record. People can look us up in El Paso County and see all the documentation. I have a half a dozen letters from neighbors saying, "Hey, this glamping operation is awesome. We love it in our neighborhood. It brings some flavor to our neighborhood. So let's keep it." And then
So,
there's one letter of concern, and that's
mhm.
from
Oh,
that
from the
one
one
neighbor.
neighbor. So what do you
Yeah.
do though? Like, what does it feel like? Can you put me in your shoes that day that you get a knock at the door and you're like, you're out in the country, so you probably don't get a ton
Oh,
of random knocks at the door. It's like,
this is
hey, I'm sorry, who's this? How can I help you? And you realize that it's the government coming to tell you that, they're looking into your glamping business. They never say they're just shutting you down, but
this
how do
is
you feel in that moment? And what are the first steps that you take afterwards? Like, do you call your
oh
lawyer?
oh boy, you gave me a lot to answer here. This is a good story because I had so this is my third year into it, or just entering into my third year, and I'm thinking, and the neighbor was voicing concerns to other neighbors at the time. So I'm like, there are some things I need to school myself on. So I hired a guy out in Denver who specializes in zoning and permitting and things like that. I hired him to come down and walk my property. On that very day of him walking the property, I got my first yellow jacket, and it was from the regional building department.
Oh, wow.
And he shows up. I mean, this is so bizarre. So he shows up. So I had this contractor. He wasn't a lawyer, but he kind of dealt in legal zoning requirements and things like that. And he was advising me on what I needed to do to bring my decks up to par and
Mm-hmm.
bring zoning and how to move all these pieces around, because it is very complicated. It's actually overwhelming when you first get into all these details. Well, he showed up there, so it was like perfect timing. So we all kind of huddled together and said, what do I need to do to bring my existing operation up to code? And you know what? I always question people when they say they got shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It typically doesn't go that way. There's processes that the government goes through before actually shutting you down, and it's usually the government doesn't see that way. In fact, this enforcement officer who showed up, we're on first name basis, and we got each other on speed dial because he's a very nice guy. And he even told me, we're not in the business of shutting businesses down. We're in the business of helping you to comply to the code.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like a mediator between what the county code is, or the municipality, or whatever, for your you got to find out where you live. And he's a mediator to get me up to that code that the building department has, that elected officials actually have put into place. So once I understood him as a mediator, as almost a coach,
Mm-hmm.
that just changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to shut you down. They're there to help you comply to their code. So, but you mentioned a lawyer. I did hire a lawyer. In fact, I knew him. He knew
Mm-hmm.
me. I knew him, and now we're good friends. But he lives in the same creek as me. My kids have gone to his family runs a horse camp in town, so we knew of each other. But now we really get along well because I call him up saying, "Hey, this is happening right now," and he was in our original planning meeting. So with the county, that's really what when the this is another yellow jacket. This enforcement officer, he really did have the jurisdiction to shut me down.
Mm-hmm.
The first one kind of gave me a slip. There's no fine to it or anything. It's just a stop building
Okay.
violation. That's what it's called, something like that, or cease build. And he
Mm-hmm.
kind of laughed when he gave it to me because I know you already have it built,
Mm-hmm.
but what you need to do is you need to call downtown and you need to talk to somebody to actually get it permitted. And that's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
I have a contractor working on a bathhouse right now. We had to restructure our glamping sites and our it gets in the complications. That's different all across the country, all over the world. Every county,
it's
every
all different.
municipality. Yeah, it's all different. And that's what scares people away from glamping, I think, or hosting something on their own property. But it's like anything else. You got to just lift the hood and kind of figure out what the code says.
So
and then you do it. And then you build according to the code. And then life gets a lot easier. And then you're in the newspaper and stuff like that because people are interested in glamping.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that the Yellow Jacket, or the government, especially when I got into the special use permit that I needed to get. That was the
Yeah.
big ticket item that I needed to get. The building codes is kind of easy. That's simple. But the
Yeah.
special use permit was, I'm actually in the middle of my second year special use permit for another property that I'm building
Hmm.
out.
Real quick, I have a video on special
Yeah.
use permits that I'll link up on this on the top of the screen right now. But can you explain what a special use permit is?
Yes, that's where the county told me what you need to do is get a special use permit to use your rural residential property the way you want to use it. There's certain things that are allowed, like gardens and stuff like that. I don't need to get a permit to start a garden,
Hmm.
or something like that. But a recreation camp is a special use. So
Hmm.
it's that my 6.5 acres is, like I said, rural residential. It's a large acreage, but there's a whole bunch of 5 acre properties all around me. And it's the idea is that there's not a pig farm next door. You know, a pig
Hmm.
farm is not allowed, but and but there's nothing that says glamping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the county determined what the square hole that you fit into is what's called a recreation camp.
Okay.
Things like a paintball course or something, maybe a go-kart course or a biking course or something like that. Those are uses of my property that's special.
Okay.
And they said glamping is a special use. And that was another angle I went to my neighbors on, saying, I could have a go-kart course.
Hmm. Yeah.
That could be a special use,
Hmm.
but it's not. It's glamping. It's people enjoying their mornings and evenings. They typically leave my property. They don't stick around. They're tourists,
Yeah.
and they're out visiting Garden of the Gods or Pikes Peak or
Hmm.
the hiking for the day, things like that. And they just so I don't have. It's not a campground. I've had to
Yeah.
correct people. It's not a campground. It's a glamp ground, and it's a
Yes.
much different. But to the counties, the county sees it as a recreation camp,
And that's how you were
and
able to get the special use permit?
yes, and that was awarded to me last July, and the county wasn't going to shut me down, and they didn't say. That's where the lawyer came in, very
Hmm.
handy, because the lawyer had me walk that fine line of operating while at the same time
Okay.
trying to be compliant. So I'm not in compliance, but
Yeah.
I'm able to operate my
Yeah. And
operation
still make,
and
yeah.
still make money.
So what was it like applying for the special use permit, receiving the special use permit, and do you think you would have been able to do it without your lawyer? And like, what advice do you have for people who are like, I have a beautiful piece of property, I own 6 acres, I have a nice house, like, do I need a special use permit? Like what is that? How do I go about it?
Yeah, you probably need some sort of permit.
Hmm.
Even me out in the country in El Paso, unincorporated El Paso County, like I
Hmm.
said, the name sounds like I could do whatever I want. You probably need to get something and do something. I'd say call the county and just figure that out. They typically will point you right in the right direction.
Hmm.
Our county has a daily phone person. One of their planners sits on the phone all day long and takes those kinds of calls. I've
Okay.
called a few times. Hiring a lawyer was very strategic of me. There Actually, I had a neighbor who was trying to do something else, but hers was different. She got denied by the county, but she just wanted to have a tiny house on her property,
Oh, wow.
and she had, well, it's the same grumpy neighbor, but she had to deal with this neighbor, and through the county, the neighbor didn't express concerns. They just called the county,
Hmm.
and she was taken up, but she was applying for a variance, which is something different.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
I think you had Nick. I think you referenced Nick. Nick was the guy, and I've talked with Nick too. Nick's great.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would
Yes.
encourage your visitors to go ahead and listen to that episode, because
Yeah, I'll
he
put a
really
link to
did
that on the
explain it
top.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
did. He
he
did.
explained it very, very well, and that's his specialty. Actually, my lawyer is very much like Nick, except he's an old guy, but he's much older. But he was my lawyer was a former Board of County Commissioner,
Okay.
So having him in the room with my planning meeting. So I had a planning meeting just like my neighbor had a planning meeting. This is very interesting, actually. Didn't know we were going to go here, but my neighbor had a planning meeting, did not have a lawyer with them, and it was just them. They wanted to put a tiny house in their yard. I had a planning meeting, and I had this former Border County Commissioner lawyer, very well known in the room. It just made all the planners and the people in this planning meeting. It was an online meeting.
Yes.
Just kind of sit up straight. They were like, okay, I'm going to be corrected if I don't get this right.
Yeah.
The planner that was assigned to me in this meeting, again, that's public information too. People can actually watch this hour-long meeting with a bunch of bureaucrats. Really, that's what we're dealing with. And my planner in the meeting, once he got his head around what I was doing, said, that sounds really cool. And they became kind of advocates for what I was doing. Now they would never say that. They would never say that they were advocates,
of course
because
not.
they're wearing their government hat. They've got to push their code. But they wanted me to succeed.
Yeah.
You could kind of, especially when I told them the story and really my beginning story of how I kind of fell into this, and I'm really trying to do what's right, and I want to honor you guys and get compliant, because I had health department, I had the floodplain guy, I had two health department people there. There were a lot of people who were saying you can't do what you're doing. But then the tone changed after a while. After the meeting, they really started to understand what glamping was.
Yeah.
I mean, the meeting started off, they're looking at me like I've got three heads. But the meeting ended going, okay, this is a checklist that you got to do, and here you go. This is the path to go.
Yeah.
And
I think
and then I went down that path.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't want to reach out to lawyers just because they assume it's going to cost $75,000 just to even have a introductory conversation. And I think a lot of people also don't view starting glamping businesses as businesses. Like, let's not forget the 50% of the glamping business word is the second half is business. So I always tell people, if you can, try your hardest to, think about those things. Bringing in, I think you said a couple of things that really stood out to me. Showing me, that you not only knew what you were doing, but you were trying to set yourself up for success, which is after you accidentally started a glamping business and realized that you had something extremely profitable on your hands and you doubled and tripled down on it, which is obviously a key sign of success that a lot of people should try to do themselves. You went and got a zoning and permitting expert, and then you also went and got a lawyer, and you figured out, how can I make this work? Especially once you hit the point that you didn't just have your hunting tent anymore. It seems like once you had your hunting tent, two other tents, and a couple of container homes, you said, okay, whoa, let me try to get it. It almost sounds like you tried to get ahead of this. Like, you knew like the hammer could be coming down at any moment. You're like, this is, I've got something too good to be contained here. And then you went about that steps, right?
Yeah. Contained. Yeah. And that's the fear in the glamping world. I attend the American Glamping Association every year. Were you there, Jamie? Were you there?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. This last October, I was there this last October, and we gave a fireside. Well, I gave two presentations there. One was for funding at one of the events they had there, and I also gave a fireside chat with White Duck, which makes canvas tents, and I got to know some people who attend there. So there's hundreds of people who attended, and they see the seminars and things like that. I saw a lot of fear in people, and they're like, gosh, like, once I opened up and I shared the story, because I shared the same story on the stage, even about getting into trouble and stuff and what we needed to do. A lot of people were kind of coming up to me and goes, I got a tent too in my backyard, and I'm waiting for the authorities to. And I said, what? Don't be afraid. You're doing a great service. You're hosting. I mean, I get people proposing on my property. I get people, celebrating their anniversaries of several years. They're one night they live in an apartment in downtown Denver, and they just can't stand it anymore. They come down here and stay in my tent. And so I shared this with people like that at the American Glamping Association. I said, you're doing great work. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. I mean, yeah, you're also making money at it, but you're doing a service in people's lives that changes their lives. And they're making memories that'll last a lifetime. So figure out how to do it legally. It's worth doing.
It's worth it.
It's like, it's expensive. Yeah. A lawyer is going to cost money. The permit itself is about $7,000, and that's just the paper. Okay. So there's soils tests I have to do. I have to I'm installing a septic tank in 2 weeks. That's going to be $40,000. That's the biggest ticket item. That's $40,000. So add it all up. Well, let me throw some numbers out there because it's important to your listeners.
Yeah, I love that. I was also going to say, if you could, talk about how much all of this has costed you over the years, and if you have any tips on how to bring down costs for others, because I call it paying the stupid tax. Us pioneers, we go out there, we do these things, we fall flat on our face, we pick ourselves up, and we pay that stupid tax. So hopefully the listeners don't have to.
Stupid tax. That's a good one. I might steal that from you because I got a lot of stupid taxes going on around.
Same.
Just a big picture. We've lived here for 23 years. I don't totally own my house, but I only owe about $200,000 on it.
Okay.
And it's roughly a $600,000 to $800,000 piece of property. Is about what we own. So I had the equity in the house.
And how many acres?
6.5 acres, and it's a beautiful piece of property. I got a creek in my backyard. It's beautiful view of the valley, and it's really nice. And it's on a secluded road. On this road, there's only 5 neighbors. Nice. So so you got to kind of beat where I could see the interstate from my backyard, and you can kind of hear it too when you're in a canvas tent, but it's a couple miles in the distance in the valley. Anyway, all that to say, I have equity. So I got a HELOC, and I got a $200,000 HELOC on the property. And that is fueling the development of this property. And really what I call it, just establishing it, getting all my permits and like I said, the septic tank and redesigning my decks. And there's a lot to that. And it's going to cost me about $200,000. And I financed my living off of the selling of my previous business. So when I decided to quit my job and sell my business, that actually is financing me. So in my mind, I've got 3 years to make this glamping thing work, and I'm already making it work. So it's like that's what got me to pull that trigger. The special use permit, it was divided into 2 things. The special use permit was a $4,300 bill, and then the site development plan is another $2,300. So roughly between $6,000 and $7,000. That's just for the permit. That's my check to the county. Okay, so and the things that are included in there are things like my soils testing. My water permit, I need to upgrade my water permit. I hired a water lawyer from Denver. That was roughly $5,000 to get an upgrade of my all the legal fees and the permit itself. Then there was, I'm trying to think of what else. The building permits was a whole separate department I needed to go through. And that I'm still in the works on that. That's still, I'm in operation. I'm in development mode right now. The winter here, we do some winter glamping, but largely shut down. I've got 1 container and 3 tents open, but we will have 8 units on my property when it's all said and done. And I'm digging up my yard right now and building it out. So I'm in site development while I'm renting out the best I can, and I'm making it work.
So it sounds like
I'm probably going to use up that $200,000 HELOC. I hope to have some money left over, but that's just me being hopeful. But by the time I'm done with it, I'll probably end up spending all of it. Oh, that did include, I bought a container home too. That was $40,000. I got a great deal on that. That was
that does sound like a good deal.
$80,000. Well, it was my son's first. My son builds them, and he's building out an RV park out in Oklahoma right now. So he's very much into the RV world. but he builds these container homes and sells them for $80,000-$90,000 a pop. The
So
first one he built, I bought because I wanted to keep it in the family.
yeah, yeah, and you also probably
So,
got the best deal on that. New
yeah, I
builders
got the
always get
best deal.
new
Yeah,
builders are always sell their first couple ones for low, so that was
yeah.
smart of you. You said that you got a $200,000 HELOC. Can you tell us what a HELOC is?
That's a home
And that's
equity line of credit.
mm-hmm,
Home equity line of credit. So I have equity in my house.
mm-hmm,
So let's say my house, I think it appraised at like 700,000. So I owed 200,000 on it. Well, that's 500,000 in equity. And the bank said, well, we will give you a loan and your collateral is that equity. And so I ran the numbers. It was a local bank that I went through. Wells Fargo didn't, who my original, I had a really good loan. So I didn't want to do I refinanced when the rates were so low.
mm-hmm,
So I didn't want to refi, and do a cash out refi, which is what I think most people would have done.
mm-hmm.
And so instead, I got a HELOC with a private bank or a local bank, not a private bank, a local bank, and they approved it. And
Okay.
I could have gotten more, but I thought 200,000 was probably what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got that at a low rate at the time. And I thought it was high rate at the time, but now it's a low rate.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how I'm financing the establishment of this glamping property.
Cool. And then again, I think a good chunk of the funds that you've raised to go into it, not a good chunk, but you definitely put down some money on these lawyers and getting the zoning and permitting expert out there to assist you. How does one even start? Like, do you go on Google and just type "help me"? Like, how did you go about calling these lawyers, starting the conversations with the zoning and permitting experts? And how do you not come across foolish when you do that? I think that's another thing that holds a lot of people back. How do you establish yourself and have those conversations with them to get those people to help you and fight on your behalf?
Yeah. Well, the zoning guy that came on my property and actually started consulting me first, I only hired him once. But I met him through online group, Rob Abasolo's Glamp Camp.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of that. I met him through there, and I discovered, he's from Denver. So then we made the arrangements, and I think he cost like $800 to come down for a few hours.
Okay.
Which I thought here's kind of a bigger picture thought that I bet you your guests or your viewers will resonate with. Ask yourself, how much would you pay to start a business that you love? And I had a $200,000 mark on my head.
Yeah.
I said, I really love this. Mm-hmm. Would I pay $200,000 to just buy a brand new business and just go into it? Well, yeah, I that's not that much money. Mm-hmm. I mean, well, it's a lot of money, but it's, to buy a business, an established business, then that makes me $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. 200,000, take my money. I mean, that's when I frame it that way. Mm-hmm. And so now I am making $100,000 a year on a business that cost me $200,000. That's an easy investment.
Yeah. So it was worth getting the zoning experts, the lawyers to come in and help out for sure.
And my lawyer, who is still my lawyer, is more of a family friend. Like I said, my kids went to this horse camp for years, and so that's just who I knew, I guess.
Yeah.
But you want to find a lawyer who specializes in land development.
Okay.
And he was a former Board County commissioner, and so he was well done. Actually, starting with your elected official. Mm-hmm. Call him up. They love talking to their constituents. Say, hey, this is what I'm doing out in this property. And they know the stuff like the back of their hands. Oh yes, this is what you got to do. You got to call this person, call that person, and then you're able to just put the pieces together.
Yeah.
Like at the Glamping Association, the conference, when I was dealing with people who were like, I'm doing something like that too. Yep. I met a lot of people like that. I even said, most of you are illegal.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
But once that veil comes off and you go, okay, I'm illegal, but I want to get legal. Then that's when people just become helpful.
Mm-hmm.
and the county, like I said, I viewed them as more of a mediator rather than a law enforcement officer. Then things became simple
Yeah.
and doable. Now all of a sudden it's not scary.
Cool.
It's expensive. I mean
Yeah.
that too is a little bit of hesitation for people too. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spend $7,000 on a permit.
Yeah.
Well, then the government does get mean.
Mm-hmm.
If you're that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah. They're only nice for so long.
Yeah, right.
We know
And
they shut down the mob via taxes and things like that. So they care
yeah,
about their
right.
money.
Yeah, they care about their money, right? So, but if you have a true desire to be compliant,
Mm-hmm.
then they start using you as an example.
Yeah.
They
This
like,
is how
hey,
you do it the right way.
look at this is how you do it the right way, so go the route Chris and Wendy Jube have gone, and
Yeah.
things will turn out fine. Because I've talked with people. I mean, I don't turn them in like my one neighbor does,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some glamping operations that are going on here, and
Yeah.
they've contacted me and said, "Gosh, I'm doing something else. I'm doing something too on my property on this side of the county."
Yeah.
And I just tell them how it's done,
Yeah.
and then they take it from there. It's
Cool.
not as hard as people think. It's not as intimidating as people think.
Yeah.
It can be done, and you're leading the same charge. I'm preaching to the choir right now, but it's like because you, Jamie, are doing a great thing by removing those barriers for people. I
Thank you.
actually I watched a number of your videos early on because I was in the mix of it. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
like a year ago, you were really doing a lot of YouTubing, and you were one of my guys because I was going to you and going, "Oh yeah, I got to learn up on this stuff." That's how I got to know Nick too, and
Yeah, I'm happy
because
to
we've been
help.
in these discussions.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. The goal of Keep It Tiny is to really drop the stigma and the worry. There's a lot of question marks behind glamping businesses, tiny homes, tiny structures, etc., and how to make money from it. A lot of the information on these types of things, they're pie in the sky type of stuff. They're wanderlust, like people leaving college to road trip around America and it's beautiful. And it's like, well, there's a business side to that. And, let's get real and let's talk about that. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm glad I could help you. I'm happy to be your guy. I hope I can help others. And that's kind of really the goal. So I have another question for you though, because
Sure.
You beat the feds. That's what I'm going to call it. I listen to a lot of rap music. All right. So you beat the feds, right? You're not guilty. You beat the charges. Now you're running a successful business. You have 3 tents. You have 3 container homes. You are making, I'm going to say a low number, probably 90 to 100K a year, from your business. How do you keep thriving? And most importantly, I think the number one question I would have is, how did you get so much press? Is it just your boyish charm? How did you kind of get the press? Because I do think that helps elevate and it allows marketing to be done for you without you having to do it yourself.
Yeah. How did I get the press? I don't know. Well, I have a very unique family, so we're well known in the. Here, I'll actually grab this picture.
You said that you guys were on TV, right?
Yeah, this is
a
my
big family. Yeah,
it's a big family. Yeah, we have 16 kids. Yeah,
yeah.
you didn't know that, did you, Jamie?
No, I did not.
Know, did you know that?
No,
yeah,
I did 16. Not.
So I've got a very large family. Yeah, we were featured on TLC back in 2008, and I'm also very involved in academic debate. I mentioned before, I'm a debate coach.
So did the press reach out to you though, or did you reach out to them first?
Which way did it go? Yeah, they reached out to me.
Okay.
I can't remember. I mean, I'm always fishing for ways to do that. In fact, there was one glamping host. How did I come across her? It was at an AGA meeting, AGA, the American Glamping Association.
Yeah.
Who was from Michigan, and I can't even remember her name, but she said she was very aggressive in getting popular press. And so then I think I did. I put a feeler out there to our local paper, the Gazette. Yeah. And that's where the Tribune came in. The Tribune is the local paper, and then they did a story, and then I hoop and howl whenever I get that press. I'm posting it on my personal Facebook and just pushing it out there. I even got a framed picture of it. Spent a couple $100 and put a framed picture of it on my wall
Yeah.
just because it was a great article.
Yeah.
And people love to do puff pieces like that on
For sure.
glamping.
Nice
And
little
like
feel good
Fox
story.
21, Fox 21 is coming out. Oh, and the Chamber of Commerce, actually, that's a really good piece of advice. Get involved in your Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Pay your $100 a year, whatever their fees are, and just be there. Go to their breakfasts and go to their educational meetings and stuff like that. And start passing out business cards. Start passing them out.
Mm-hmm.
Be loud and proud about what you're doing.
Yeah.
In our community, we don't have very many Airbnbs. We don't have any. We have one hotel in the whole town of Monument.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a tourist attraction. We get people, a lot of hikers and bikers, and like I said, Garden of the Gods and Pikes Peak are big attractions. People love coming to this part of the country to vacation, and we have one hotel.
Yeah.
And everyone's going down to Colorado Springs. So, boy, the president of my Chamber of Commerce probably
loves you. Loves what you have going on.
She came out and toured our place, and
mm-hmm.
and she was one of the letters that got sent into the county. When I was doing she said, hey, we want glamping in northern El Paso County and Monument, so please allow this special use. Mm-hmm. So it kind of cleared the path.
Yeah, and that helps amplify your voice and what you have going on. Yes. And I think once you're, before I quit my career, I was a director of digital marketing in the tech world, but I know that press begets more press. Right. So once you kind of get the ball rolling and they see that, another person picked up the story, all of a sudden your story to them seems more attractive, and, they kind of don't want to get left behind. And it's also an easier sell for them to talk to, whoever's running their paper or their publication, where it's just like not pitching a brand new story, but like, hey, look, someone else has already deemed this worthy, so we deem it worthy as well. Let's figure out how to make it work.
And glamping is a cool thing. Mm-hmm. And everyone in the press wants to do something on glamping. Yeah. So if you're the authority and you're the guy in town who's doing it, then I become a magnet. I mean, you people are attracted to you. And not only the press, restaurants, area businesses, the rental
they love you.
Place in town. They're
Absolutely.
Like, hey, Chris is bringing in people from all over the country and from downtown Denver and Colorado Springs to stay here in our community. What's not to like?
Absolutely. They come in with a pocket full of money. I know that's how I roll when I'm on vacation. I like to have a good time. And, I'm the local area is going to get this money. Somebody in this town is going to get my money when I go out to eat, when I go out to, have a good time. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, so we're doing like I said, we're doing a ribbon cutting ceremony on May 1st. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know how I'm going to keep all the people. This is going to be the biggest ribbon cutting ceremony of the chamber, because everybody wants to come out and see my tents. For one, they want to just walk it and visualize it. But two is that we're bringing so much business into the area. Mm-hmm. And this is only 8 sites. My second property, we're applying for 16 sites. So we're going to have 24 sites, hopefully by the end of this year, to publicize in the Monument area. And I'm working on a third property too. So that's you asked, how do you keep the press coming? Well, it's still growing. I still feel like I'm small, and I want to get bigger. My goal at the beginning of the year was to have 5 properties by the end of this year. And I might not reach that goal, but it's still a goal.
All right. So
they're kind of like 10X.
So you think you're still a small player, and I guess one would say there's levels to all of this or whatever. A lot of the people listening probably think you're like the Ritz-Carlton or you're like the Marriott, like you're at that level. But what would you tell somebody who...
It's all relative, man.
It's all relative. Yeah. What would you tell somebody who's just starting off? They either have a tent up already or they're thinking about getting into glamping and they're nervous. They don't want to waste money. They're nervous about is it going to be successful. What advice would you have for them?
I'd say just do it. Just do it. Even if you are walking a line, and most people don't say that. You probably don't say that either, Jamie, but I don't have a business like yours, so I can get into a little bit more trouble. But I say, go ahead and do it. And if you get dinged, then start getting undinged.
Yeah.
You just start moving in that direction, because really you're going to find out so much. I had one person that I'm thinking of right now who got into glamping, ended up hating it, and didn't like it. So then he started backpedaling and going, "This is what you're doing, Chris, is just not for me." You might discover that. You might discover you don't want people on your property. You don't want to get to know people. Maybe you do hate people.
Yeah.
So you don't discover that. Like we discovered how much we enjoyed it, and it's almost like an adrenaline rush for when we fill our tents up, and we're getting really excited right now. It's March, early March. It's still very cold. But we do get people on the weekends and stuff staying in our canvas tents, but we got heaters. It's harder to do in the winter. Yeah. But we can't wait till May 1st comes around. We have that ribbon cutting ceremony, and I'm booking things out. I would love to have everything booked out this summer, and we just ended up enjoying it. So I would say to the newcomer, the person who's just got all it is an idea.
Yeah.
Just do something. And, today's world makes it so easy.
Yeah.
You could just throw it up on there like I did. The tent's in the backyard. Let's just keep the bed and everything out there. Yep. And throw it up on Airbnb, see what happens. And boom, we booked out for the rest of the summer.
Yeah. I tell people, just punch fear in the face. Punch fear in the face. Right. Just do it. People, I've always lived in my life, a lot of people tell me, what are you going to do if you fail? What happens if you fall? I always say, what happens if I fly? Like, well, no one ever thinks about that aspect. I've also been told a lot of my life to slow down. Everyone's got to keep up with me. I'm not slowing down for anybody.
You bet, man.
Yeah, it seems like you just did
you're
it.
Preaching it, brother.
Yeah.
That's like I referenced the AGA, and half the people here are illegal. It's like, you don't even... I'm saying don't even use the law as a reason not to do it. Use, like I said, we're doing a great work. So that's what kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow. And I want to be razor sharp legally. Why? Because I want to continue doing what I'm doing. The code and being in line with the code is really hard to do, and it's almost by design. It's hard.
Unfortunately,
but it's not impossible.
No,
it's not impossible. It is possible because people are doing it. I'm doing it. You're doing it. We're there's lots of people. A lot of your listeners are doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's not impossible. You just got to figure it out and do it.
So I'm a city boy through and through. I live in New York City. I love the outdoors to an extent. But you run your glamping business in a really cold area. Can you talk to me about winter glamping? Like, because you said that you guys do stay open during the winter season. How is that for you from a profitability standpoint? Is it better to just shut down? Is it better to keep it open? And then logistically speaking, do you have heaters? Are they propane heaters? What do you have going on? How do you run your glamping business, not only in the winter, but in a cold area?
Yeah, this started off, this was several years ago. I read an article in our local paper actually about winter camping. People who actually do enjoy being outdoors. And I do too. I mean, I go elk hunting every year, and we pack up for years, packed up all of our hunting stuff and went to the mountains and went elk hunting. And it's cold. It gets down to 0 degrees sometimes at night and stuff. You got to keep things warm. But that was awesome. We loved doing that for a time, and we like to come home to our comfortable home. But so winter glamping, I actually explain this to people in the glamping world that it is a thing, and it's a profitable thing. Now, I lower my rates. I consider it off season. We do a lot of developments during the winter season. So, like I said, I'm going to have 8 units on here, but I took down my bell tents that are closer to the creek. They're right alongside the creek. I took those down for the winter just because shoveling those off or getting down there is a little bit more treacherous when it's snowy. But New York is colder than Colorado.
Oh, I didn't know that. We do get all 4 seasons.
Yeah, it's a dry climate. So it snows, but then it will melt in a few days. So it's not, it doesn't, I'm not really up in the mountains. I'm right
Okay.
on the mountain range. So if you look at Colorado, most of Colorado is very dry, deserty place. The other half is mountains, the Rocky Mountains, and we're right in the middle. So we're right before you get into the mountains. I might, but there's glamping operations that go on in the mountains or go in cold climates, and they shut down every winter. I try to encourage them to go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So you think it's profitable? You would recommend staying open in the winter?
I would. I mean, like I said, it's more work. We got to keep our propane tanks full. So there's more trips to the hardware store to fill up those propane tanks and things like that. So we have propane heaters. I was going to do wood. Wood is I've learned a lot about heat.
I went down that rabbit hole as well. That's why I'm asking it. I love everyone to learn about it. Yeah.
Propane is hotter than natural gas. Natural gas is what I have on my property, but I'm actually getting a big propane tank installed here in a couple of weeks as part of my development this winter, so that I could fill up my own 20-gallon propane tanks, and that's what I'll rent out to the renters. And propane is hotter than natural gas, like I said, but not as hot as wood. Wood is very hot, but also very dangerous. And here in Colorado, well, I mean, it's just a tinderbox of grasslands, and so to be safe, to err on the side of safety, I go with a propane stove. Everything's propane fire pit for their deck, propane heater for inside their tent, and I will have propane water, heated water going into my new bathhouse.
Okay.
And we have a hot tub. The hot tub is electric, but because I know there's other kinds of hot tubs. That's kind of the standard design for hot tubs. And then I will have more electricity going down to my safari tents. So here's my layout. I have 3 safari tents and 5 bell tents. The bell tents are off grid, so they have to park and walk down to the creek. But it's nicer. It's more secluded, and they can go down to that side of the property into the valley, and you can hear the rippling water right outside the tent and things like that. People like that. And we rent out little battery packs so they can keep their phones charged, but they don't have electric heaters going on or electric blankets and things like that. The safari tents are more of what you think of glamorous and glamorous camping. So that has the full bed and the heaters and the fans and things like that.
Okay. And then I guess not to take up too much of your time, what do you think is the biggest learning lesson or piece of advice that could be passed on for people interested in glamping from any lens?
I'd encourage your visitors or your viewers to contact me personally. I love talking shop.
Yeah, your information will be down in the description on YouTube, the show notes on Spotify. I guess I don't know if I told my viewers yet, or I don't know when this is coming out, but we're going full force. Spotify, Apple Music, wherever podcasts will be found, will be on there, and your information will be down below for sure.
Oh, good. Then contact me. I'll go back to that piece of advice of just do it. Just do it. Get in. You're going to learn so much. I mean, every day I learn something. That even now, for going into my 4th year, I still feel like every day I'm learning a new thing. Yesterday, I had a hot tub engine all taken apart because they cracked. It froze here. We've had an unusually cold winter this winter, and one of my machines started leaking, and I didn't figure it out why. Until I figured out, it actually froze at one of our Arctic blasts we got, and it cracked inside and started leaking.
Cool. Yeah.
Great. I just learned something.
Exactly. Cool. That's awesome.
Now I know what not to do. Don't let them freeze.
Yeah.
And so
you learn a lot by doing. So that's why it's like just start, right?
Right. Actually, what don't we learn by making mistakes and failing? You mentioned failure before. The pain you go through when you fail is what brings us progress.
Okay. Yeah.
It's when we don't fail or we never try, and then we sit on our laurels and life just passes us by. I've always
Absolutely.
been this way. I mean, Jamie, I got 16 kids. I live and breathe this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So parenting was something we ventured into fearlessly. I I like to say I owned a schoolie back when
Oh,
schoolies
cool.
weren't that
Wow.
cool. Or they did,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like 2004, 2005. We had a bus. It was a big feature on our TV show,
Yeah.
and I have a picture of me installing a house air conditioner into the bus. And I said, why would I put a house air conditioner, not an RV air conditioner in there?
Hmm.
And I remember saying, or I had to post it, because I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why.
Yep. Yep.
And why is this unconventional? The conventional is something that, if your viewers are unconventional thinkers, embrace unconventional thinking. Just go
Hmm.
ahead and do it. Do what other people tell you you can't. That's where the real joys of life are.